Hello, guys. Welcome back. Can you hear me? Awesome. Yeah, I asked that because I changed everything here today, man. I decided to do like a cable management kind of thing underneath my desk here, and obviously everything went offline. So like, I lost connection with my internet, like the three computers here, and it was like freak out mode, It's like so I had to reinstall a couple of things here, but everything seemed to be working. I did some tests, but let's hope for the best. All right. So we have a lot to talk about today. The first thing, I think I'm going to start by showing you a little bit the stuff I did over the weekend, so you guys are in the loop. Because I don't want to, I was like, oh, if I did something, I tried something different, I want you guys to be in the loop. The shader is going to come more during this week. I changed a couple of things in my shader network. I think it's looking nicer now. But I'm going to show you some stuff about the sculpture part. So let's take a look at this. This is my current state for the character. Let's take a look at the detail stuff. I don't have any details yet on the ears. And I started doing some of the neck stuff, and then some other stuff like the veins and the forehead. The veins basically like I started showing you guys, and I just kept doing the same thing. It just made them more intense this time around. The first pass was a little bit too subtle, so just increased that. And I want to make sure that we cover a couple of things today. I thought today we would be talking about like the main hair, but normally like this Monday we talk about like eyebrows. So we're gonna do some grooming, like the simple stuff, the eyebrows, maybe like the nose hair stuff, and then tomorrow is gonna be the actual hair. But I'm gonna show you a couple of things before that. So let me just like unhide this. Let me get just like maybe this area here so I can see the whole thing. Let's try that. Let's go HD here. So what I have for this guy so far. So I did a couple of more things. So in the process of trying to merge things together, right? You can tell just by looking at here that I'm using a lot of this brush that we talked about quite a bit. We made it actually during the class, which was this one based on elastic, right? So just like in circular motion, same deal, like just like that, just like with the lower intensity, right? Kind of like, maybe like, let's say 14, something like that. It's too little. Let's try a little bit more. I don't know exactly. 19. Yeah, something like that. So a lot of this, like in circular motion, and a lot of the same brush in direction, like using for directionality, right? Like areas like this. So kind of a lot of it, just like any direction like that. Same for this area here. There's some more. For the neck, I did a lot of this actually. It was just direction. So there's not a lot of detail, but a lot of this, just like going back and forth and covering it with this directionality kind of thing. And then for those bumps here, I started to add some of them. I'm gonna have to add some more to cover some of those gaps in there. But it was basically that pimple elastic that I show you guys. It's the same deal, it's like an alpha just with drag rectangle and the elastic. And then with intensity, I think it was like 30 something. And then just like one by one, kind of like doing this. Just adding them in there. And then the intention is to break up stuff now with some micro wrinkles. But basically, like those are the two brushes I used for this entire area so far. And then on top of that, once I was kind of okay with those, the placement of those ones kind of like done manually, then I switched to spray. And you just have to make sure that spray is not, it's like in this setting here, the flow is not too intense. Let's go keep at 0 and see how much we get here. Let's put like symmetric. It's a little bit too much. Let's get like very small. Let's try something like that. So you see like this kind of little bumps like that, just to mix with the rest of the bigger ones. Just adding those little guys, it's like everywhere around here. So basically, like, it's just like a simple solution in there. And then my intention is to get the carve brush next, and then to come here, for example, with symmetry off, and then Z sub on. We're gonna just like start the line, break it, start it again, break it, then kind of like a little bit over it, a little bit higher. And then keep doing this, you know, it's like trying to get them a little bit longer towards the neck. So those ones gonna help to actually add that little hint that I mentioned, you know, it's like sometimes you see a plain area like that, but your eye is gonna lock into an area where you can identify as, you know, something that is functional, right? Like something that probably bends and flexes. You're gonna get something like that. So that's gonna be my next step in here, adding like all those, probably like not a lot, but a few of them. You know, it's like to really break up this, you know, this plain kind of thing in there. And then, so for this area here, let's see, like forehead, a lot of the same thing. So I covered this with the pores, right? Like the old pores that we have is still in there. And then I did some of the carving for the forehead lines here, like the wrinkles. Same deal that I just did in the neck in there. So you're just gonna pick a line, gonna keep going, and then break it from time to time. You can actually break towards like diagonal like this. Something like that. And around here, let's see. So if I continue this one a little bit longer, make sure that you don't carve too deep, right? I'd rather keep them a little shallow. And then if I need to add some in-betweens with larger forms, I do that next. Kind of like, you know, it's like grow some of those forms. And then when you get around the sides in here, then it's gonna be a combination. So I'm gonna turn on my symmetry again. So gonna be a combination of carving them towards this direction here. So basically like it goes around like that, right? Comes from there and wraps around. So you're gonna start changing direction around here towards the sides. So you're gonna have some of those bigger wrinkles, kind of like what I'm doing here, kind of like a little bit more visible, right? And then as soon as you have some of them in place, then you're gonna go again with your directional brush, the one we're just using right here. And then you're gonna mix them with the pores by just like dragging some of them. Let's add more flow here, like 0.10 or something. So just like start adding that kind of effect, you know? So you can actually go and blend those bigger ones with the smaller ones and the pores all together. So we're gonna go all the way around, so you can go like that. And then I'm gonna use the same directionality here to create those micro wrinkles on the sides in here and start to go up as well. So you see there's a lot of the same thing. It's just like used and, you know, it's like with the right intensity and everything, and really helps. And then once you have them, then you can come again with, you know, it's like something a little bit more defined like that. And just put some of more like hero wrinkles around this area. I don't know how old your character is gonna be, but if depending on the character, if it's getting older and older, then you're probably gonna want to add more volume in between those wrinkles, right? So in his case here, I mean, like I can just define them like that and then go back, for example, to a lower level, add like a clay build up with a little alpha can be like 37, something like that. Low intensity is at 3, right? And then you can just like build up some of those volumes if you need to, right? In this case here, I'm not gonna build too much because I wanna keep him on the kind of youngish side of things, although he has kind of like a old kind of look. But you know, it's like kind of like not gonna build up too much, but some of them. So if you do this at the lower level like that, when you go back up, you should be in a good spot, you know. You should get just enough volume. So a lot of this was done there, and then here for this area here is mostly what we did last week. I just redefined a little bit, you know, as I kind of like detail a little bit more with a sharper carve brush. I added some more wrinkles around here. This one's a little funky, I have to fix. But basically, like I did a lot of this kind of like back and forth, just like refining things, you know. Let's get to build up this one, the carve brush. So, you know, it's like just picking some of those and making them a little bit more hero. And then when I got to the, let's see, there was another area I was poking around. Lips. Oh, there's one thing that I do. I'm gonna show you this. For the veins, same deal, right? Like I just pick like you can either pick like just a clay build up, for example, with alpha, or if you don't want to destroy anything, you can just use an elastic brush. In my case here, I actually went to a couple of subdivision levels lower like this, and I painted in here. So if I wanted to do some more veins in here, I would just go pick a color like something like that, not so saturated. Let's just test the color here first. That's very saturated. Let's get it like this. A little bit greenish, too blue, something like that, right? And then like go intensity very low, for example, like 2, yeah, something like that. And I can go, I think I went even greener with that. Let's try something like that. Yeah, maybe a little bit less. Still saturated, that's weird. Yeah, something like that. But I think maybe intensity 1. And then for the intensity for the clay buildup, then you can just like see which one you prefer. Let's try with the 5. Yeah, something like that, you know. So basically like you can paint and sculpt at the same time, right? Basically that's the way it's sculpted. And then when you go to the highest levels, you just add some micro ones in here, a little bit smaller. Let's try to brush this one. When you go to a higher level, then you're gonna see them starting to work. A little bit smooth in there. And then, yeah, when you go up, then they should mix with the pores that you had below, right? Because you're sculpting at the higher level, at the lower level, sorry. And then the other thing that I did here was a pass that I forgot to mention to you guys that I always do with my characters, which is this. So I get out of HD. Right, and then I get like my carve brush with a little alpha 39, same deal that we are doing forever with a little sharp point. But then I basically like I switched to a very low intensity, like 3, for example, which it's almost like you cannot see what it's doing actually. If I do something like this, maybe, yeah, maybe even lower at 2, for example. So now I can go to a resolution like this, for example, which is not the highest at the non-HD level. It's like just like basically like 2 subdivision levels higher than the lowest here, right? And then I can go and make this brush really big like this because it's just a point, right? So the bigger I go, you know, the more this point expands. And then I'm gonna do very harsh here so you can see, for example, like this whole area here, this kind of thing, I'm gonna be doing all over the face. So for example, just around here, I already went a little bit too far. Let's see with 1. Yeah, something like that. So very carefully, I go and I start like to actually carve multiple different areas to actually introduce some of this kind of like mid-res detail. You see this area right here, there's a little depth in there. I added this way. Here, like at the base, like at this level, right? And you can reverse it. If I wanted to carve, for example, more of this zygomatic muscle, same thing, you know, it's like very, very subtle. With a large brush, you can go even from a big distance, longer distance like this, and just start actually really defining those areas in a more like broad way, you know, it's like something like that. Even like this one here, you're gonna be able to see probably right there. Just like with a very, very low intensity and a very, very large size to start actually refining the secondary forms, you know. So if you find areas like this in the neck, you see like just little hints here and there to introduce like some more complexity. Let's just split this area right here. And it's a very subtle thing, you know. Same thing around here. So like just adding more complexity to the secondaries basically. And you can go like all over the place, you know, it's like if you find areas, for example, where you normally have a depth like this one, you can go here and sharpen it a little bit more with this brush. Just introduce more complexity to it and actually make things a little bit more defined. So, you know, like even nose here, I did a bunch of this pass. You can go kind of like in a random movement as well, just touch a little bit, you know, it's like if you want to, for example, sharpen this one, I can just reverse it and just sharpen this I'm gonna do very strongly so you can see it. Right there, look. Sharp, right? Something like that. But I can go like very like subtle with it. And then, oops, I did the opposite, sorry. Right there, and then carve this area around here. So like all over the place, you know, it's like to define, for example, this little, you know, it's like almost like around the carunculum here, you have this little kind of like it's an offset. There's a pocket in here. So even this pocket here, I added afterwards, just by using this technique, you know, instead of going to the lowest of the low resolution and trying to figure it out, you kind of keep like mid resolution like that, and you just like tap those areas, you know, it's like you start introducing a little bit more complexity to those forms. So I did a lot of that, like all over the face, and then some more remodeling in this area here as well. I look at more references as well, and I found out that his head was slightly off, like from my references. So I actually reintroduced like this peak a little higher, add this plane in here, and then more defined around there. Everything, like look at the reference, you know, so I can try to pick like those subtle changes in form and trying to reintroduce to the model, you know, and it's working nicely in the render. So basically, like, oh, and the texture as well. I did a couple of things in the texture. One thing that I did, it was an experiment because I never know if it works or not, and I just assume it works, and it actually worked, which is this. You see the tone of the skin? Let me just do a screenshot for you guys so you can actually have as a reference from the video. So I changed the color overall of the skin. You see, like it's much more pale than before. Remember, it was kind of like dark, right? And I was trying to counter it in Maya. So I countered in Maya kind of like as a concept. And then once I was happy with it, I actually tried to match as much as I could, like ZBrush in ZBrush. So what I did, I actually went to the highest resolution level here before HD. And then I went to my polypaint. And then I did adjust colors, right? And then I just used like some gamma here, just brought it up. And then I increased the contrast a little bit. So it's kind of like gamma and contrast from that point that I had that was much darker than this, right? And then once I applied it, I thought like, okay, so if I do this, it's gonna screw up all the painting that's done in the HD levels, right? But the first thing I checked was this nose here because I know I put some veins in there, right? And when I checked it, the veins are still there perfectly, right? So that means that's actually, it's translating into the HD, you know, it's like all those adjustments in here, you do with the adjust colors. I don't know in other levels, you know, it's like if you do like at the lowest level, for example, but at the highest before HD, it worked for me, you know, so you can try that. So this is the color I have, just like a visual reference right now. So with that, I was able to actually eliminate a lot of those adjustments in Maya. But obviously, I'm still adjusting a little bit. I'm still making a little bit lighter than this because, you know, look at the references. Sometimes it looks paler. So I kind of like, I still have that corrective node in Maya just for the sake of it, you know. So yeah, this is with skin shader in here. So it's much lighter than it was before. So let's take a look at the render I have here. So one thing I want to show you is this as well. So in Maya, once you render, going to be information a little bit scattered here, but once you render something in Maya, you have to export your renders, right? So if you export, for example, you save your renders out of here. Oh, Jesus. You export your render out of here, you're normally going to use like a file save image, right? And if you save as PNG or JPEG, it should be kind of like a one-to-one from what you're seeing in the screen in here and what you're going to get. Now, when you export in EXR, it's a different story because the EXR normally like it's a broader kind of file, right? Like it has more information in terms of color. And it normally exports like much lighter than you see in here. So the settings that I use to export my scene if I'm rendering everything in ACES, right? The ACES are sRGB. What I do is this: I go to File, and I click Save Final Images first, that one, and then under Save File Options, I put like Apply Color Management. I do Enable, and then I do like a sRGB ACES, right? Is it enable or disable? Now I don't remember. I have to check. When we do a render, I can check. But I believe it's enabled. So if you do this, and now after you do this, you go and you save your image as an EXR, you should get something that looks like this. Let's open here. This is exported straight from Maya. I just have to check if it's enable or disable. So you see it's a much lighter version of the render, right? And I actually, what I did, I did kind of like a hacky job here, which I don't know if it's correct or not, but it works for me all the time when I do my renders in XR, which is this. I exported a PNG first, and then the PNG look exactly like my viewport, my render view. And then I exported an EXR, and I start tweaking it with using like some exposure node, exposure layer, until I got something that was like almost completely spot on. It's still tiny bit different, but like it's almost completely spot on. It works great. So if you guys want to do this, I mean, like that's basically what I do here. I just add like a exposure node. Oh, sorry. This one here, adjustments. So exposure in Photoshop. And those are the values I'm using here. I have a script, but you can see in there. So I have like an offset of 0.04. And then I have a minus 0.07 here. And then the last one is 0.43. And now I got basically like a pretty much like spot on to what I have with my PNG if I exported it straight from Maya. So that's basically like the settings I'm using, you know, if you want to copy later, minus 0.07, 0.04, and 0.43. I wish there was an automatic way to do it. You know, it's like there's some people using Nuke and other things like that. And apparently like they can get like a straight like one-to-one translation. But if we're using Photoshop, I mean, like there was a plugin I found that was supposed to do this automatically. It didn't work for me. And this works fine every time I work with it, you know. So if you want to do that, that's a hacky job, but you know. And then since I'm here, let's just show you like the plugin that I use to, you know, to do my my post-processing here, which is very simple. I try to get most of the results straight from Maya, right? And just add like a few things here and there to make things nicer. So the first thing I have to do, this is still a 32-bit map, 32-bit image, right? So I have to convert to 16, otherwise my plugin doesn't work. So I can go to image mode and then say 16. You can do a merge. And then it's gonna change the color to something very saturated. But if you go here, local adaptation, just put in here like exposure and gamma, and you should get the same color and everything. It should just convert to 16, but without losing anything, right? Obviously, it's gonna lose some color depth, but the image itself is gonna be pretty much the same. And now under filter, I use this filter that's called Alien Skin, and I believe they have exposure 5 right now. I'm still using an older version. I think it's $130 or something like that. And I bought like a long time ago, and it's such a good collection of plugins, you know. So exposure 4 from Alien Skin. And basically what it does, it has this interface like this, right? And it has a bunch of things. So for example, like this preset here, I can save my own presets. I have one here that's called, let's see, Sammy should be here or something like that. Sammy right there. So I have my own presets, gonna add this preset to that. Let's go to Sammy here. Just gonna add like, let's see, Sammy 3. And I can show you some of those presets in here so I can take a look. So this is the first one I had saved. It has more contrast. Second one has a little effect on the side. But there's so many things here. I mean, like all this stuff here, I have my own, you know, it's like handmade ones, like for different characters, right? Like different filters. You can customize the whole thing. It's kind of like a Lightroom, you know, it's like if you are familiar with Lightroom, you have all those, you know, controls for everything here. But the cool thing is that they have like those presets, like for movies, right? They have all this stuff. It's kind of like a Instagram on steroids, you know. It's like you have all this stuff. You have aged film, like with scratches and everything. And the way to use it is very simple too, you know. It's like I'm not gonna extend too much. I'm gonna leave you guys to, check out, maybe like download like the free version and test it, But for example, like there is the bouquet here. If you want to render without depth of field and just fake the depth of field, right? It's basically like the same bouquet as Photoshop uses. So you see like right here, you can actually crank it all the way so you can see the effect, right? Kind of thing like that. The one that I like a lot is this one here. That's the IR. So this one here adds like a bloom effect like that, which is really cool. Sometimes if you exaggerate too much, then it looks a little bit too, it's like kind of dreamy, right? But if you use just enough of it, you can get some very interesting results, Then they have like this gigantic collection of borders in here. So they have light effects. For example, this one I'm using here, it looks like this. It's kind of like a lens flare. And you can actually place it in different, places here. Like I'm just gonna do like a zoom out. That's basically looks like this. You can just place it somewhere like that. It's like add some light in there. Opacity, you can actually crank it if you want. And sometimes you can just use just for a little effect, it's pretty cool. And then you have textures, for example. Textures are very nice. You have like dust, right? Obviously you can use dust in there, but you have like scratches. You have a bunch of different scratches. In each one of them, you can actually add variations as well. So for example, like you can zoom in, make things a little bit bigger, increase the opacity to make it more scratched up, right? You can actually flip it both ways, right? And then you have a bunch of stuff. You have like texture of paper. Let's do opacity like stronger here. And then image wash, stuff like that. So it's pretty cool, it's like there's a lot of effects. And then obviously like all the color correction stuff by saturation, hue, it's like I normally tend to decrease like the warmth of the image by a little bit, not going completely blue like that, but it's like going a little bit bluer. It's like personal preference, I guess. There's some noise reduction. You can actually introduce noise as well. Going down there, you're gonna have like a vignetting and all that stuff. So for example, like here, you have presets for grain, right? So if you add this one, let's see, a grain, like that, it's pretty grainy, right? But yeah, so I'm gonna leave it to you guys to, if you wanna test it eventually, but it's very useful, I think like for $100 is very worth the price for the gigantic amount of, filters and stuff you get for free here. Not for free, you pay for it, but I mean like, and it's based on physical cameras, the Fuji's, Agfas, and types of films, right? Like physical films. So pretty cool, it's like that's basically what I use for all my color correction. And sometimes the way it works is like this: you apply it and it creates a layer for you. So basically like you still have your original in there, down there, but you can actually just hide the top one, apply a different effect, and you can just like pile them, it's like you can blend them if you need, like, it's like just blend like two of them, stuff like that, So yeah, just for my posts, like simple stuff. That's why I try to get the most out of Maya, because I don't need to worry about that stuff. But let's take a look at the hair stuff, right? We need to do some hair. The first thing I'm gonna tell you is that tomorrow we're gonna be working with the long hair. And I mentioned this before that the interactive groom has a couple of problems. It's like it doesn't have some of the stuff that the main XGen, the old XGen core had. And the main thing missing is this is the ability to actually create make the clumps conform to the guides, right? Like it should be, it's like there, but it's not there because, like I said, it seems like they kind of dismantled the team in there, and until they find someone to, to finish the XGen Interactive, it's pretty much like a beta version right now. It's like it was never finished. But there is this guy here. You probably know him from the interwebs. His name is Jesus. And he's an amazing groomer, man. He worked for MPC. I think he left now. He programs as well. He's a freaking genius of the whole XGen thing, right? So he has this page here. Let's see if it's under lessons. I don't know exactly where it is here, but I have the direct link if you want to take a look. Yeah, so the direct link is this one. I'm gonna post, when I post the lessons today, I'm gonna post this link together with the lesson so you guys can go and click directly. But he made this awesome little tutorial here, which is very simple to follow. And I'm gonna show you, I'm gonna do like a quick attempt in there and see if I can get it right, which basically like it does exactly what I was talking about. So you can use just a few guides and you can guide a huge amount of hair just with a few guides, you know. It's like, because the main problem with XGen not having this ability, the XGen Interactive, is that sometimes you need to put a bunch of guides to be able to drive a small area. So for example, like you have a little chunk and you want to, you know, it's like really pull towards like a certain design. You need to put a bunch of different guides in there to be able to, you know, it's like capture all the hairs around that area. But if you have less like this, it's always better to have more control. Tomorrow we might use this one to, you know, to demonstrate, but I'm gonna show you like a quick tutorial very fast before we start our eyebrows in there. So basically, like if you are starting with your object in there with the head, right? Obviously, you're gonna do like the selection of certain faces just to make sure that you're not like wasting, right? It's important that when you apply your XGen, you try not to apply to the whole object every time, especially like considering you're using like a mid-resolution model. Otherwise, it gets very heavy. If you select just a few faces, just the ones where the hair is gonna live, then it's much lighter, you know? It's like, so it's nice to just do that. But just for the purpose of the demonstration here, let's do this. You're gonna create like your interactive groom splines, you're gonna give a name, for example, main hair, something like that. In this case here, I should get like 2,400 of them, right? So I got my guides in there. Just like a quick recapping here, at this point, you can start like brushing and grooming even without the guides, right? You're completely free to do this at all times. If you need like to add more sculpt layers, you can add them as modifiers, right? And keep sculpting. But check this out. If I did some sculpting here before I added the guides, XGen is smart enough to try to incorporate the guides to follow what I already did here. So let's do something crazy like a spiral or something like that, and see if XGen is going to create the splines to conform to that. So if you did your grooming there, like it doesn't matter if you did some brushing like I did just now, or if it's just like default position. You're gonna have to add your first modifier is gonna be the guides, right? So now I have the guide in there, but nothing it was created just yet. You have to click on it first. And then when you click create, now look at this. So it tried to accommodate, obviously like tried the best it could, right? It didn't do a perfect job. But at this point here, what happens? So when you click the guide and you apply, like you click the create, it creates basically like this subgrouping here, which is basically like a description inside of the description. You see like the icon looks exactly the same with the X in there. So basically like this one behaves the same way the main hair behaves. You can add different modifiers inside of the guide, for example, like we talked about before. So it's kind of like an independent kind of thing. So now if I wanna sculpt the guides, just click the edit inside of guides, right? And now you can add sculpt the guides in there. So if I want to make it like, let's say like longer, something like that, just an example, right? Same deal. We spoke about this when we were doing the eyelashes, but just a little quick recap. And then, so let's say we have this, but look at this now. This whole area here is being influenced by this single guide. And then you're gonna have a point that some of them are going to be left behind. You see, like those ones are not moving at all. There's a row in here. All those are dead, right? Those ones are still alive, but those ones here are basically dead. And that happens a lot, you know. It's like sometimes you try to add more guides around this area. Sometimes you're successful. You can actually capture some of them, but it's always a pain. So that's why this little tutorial comes handy from Jesus, which is basically like this. Check this out. So you're going to select the in guide. Oh, you need another node. You need a clump node. So I'm going to just do like a add modifier and then clump, right? So now I have the clump, but you see what the clump is doing? It's kind of arbitrary, right? Remember like when we did the clump first time, it created just a few of them. Then we had to actually go and under density, you just increase this one, right? So you can get more of them. But what if we wanted each one of them to conform to a single spline so we can have like absolute control over the whole thing, right? That would be perfect. So that's what the tutorial is made for. So you go to Windows and you can go to your node editor right here. And you can just say, you're gonna select in guide, this one, and you're gonna select the clump, okay? This little X and the clump. You can just click this little plus in here. So it's gonna add in there. And then you can just select all of them and click this one to expand everything. So you have like your in guide, you have in guide shape, and you have the clump. You're gonna completely ignore the in guide one. You're only gonna use the in guide shape, right? Which is this guy here, right? In guide shape, and you have your clump. So you're gonna connect, it's very simple. We're just gonna click this little black dot, the out spline data, and you're gonna connect to the input points right here, right? So now they're connected, we are good in this side here. So the next step, you see like nothing changed just yet, right? So the next step, you're gonna click the clump itself, and you're gonna scroll down all the way here, and there's extra attributes. Under extra attributes, you're just gonna click use input points, right? Nothing changed in there, but everything is plugged. You just need to refresh it. So if you turn off your clump now and you turn back on, look at that. It's pretty cool because this is not part of XGen Interactive at all. It's kind of like a hacky way to do it, but it works fine, you know. The cool thing is that now I can actually add my guides by hand. For example, if I click like to add a guide without interpolation, let's add a new one here, and another one there, and another one here, right? You can actually put like close to each other, and then you can actually clump those clumps together, right? This way you can actually have absolute control. So if you have like a very intricate kind of hairstyle that you want to create, this is the best way to do it. You know, it's like you just add those few splines, capture a lot of the hair around it, add as many as you need. And then on top of that, then you can just add like, let's say like a noise modifier, right? Just to make things a little bit more natural. For example, like to sculpt like a goatee, easy, right? You can have like one curve in there. You can put the whole goatee in one curve if you want to, if it's a small goatee. But it's pretty cool, you know, it's like it's a very nice trick. We have to thank Jesus for this awesome trick. Thank you, Jesus. He laughs when we make fun of that. Yeah, so that's just like a little tutorial there. But like I said, I'm gonna post the link to the thing. It's basically like this address is too big here to just type it, so I'm gonna post it. And yeah, it's pretty awesome. So let's start this fresh. Let's delete this whole silliness. And let's get this hair out, guides out. Let's open my scene. Let's see the latest saved last night. Actually, oh, afternoon actually. It was right after I rendered that guy. I rendered in the morning. Those classes, man, like they are so exhausting for me these days because of the time I can go to bed, because I have to reprocess those videos now to add more security, right? And I don't go to bed before 2 or 2:30 every night. So yesterday I completely crashed. It was like 9 p.m. I just like crashed so hard and woke up at 5:30 in the morning. And and then came to the computer around 6 in the morning, then work in the morning. It was pretty fun, actually. It's so rare for me to be able to work in the morning. But that's the current state of things. The hair here, the peach fuzz, as you can tell, I have much more density right now. It's because, remember when I told you guys about going to the base node, this one here? And the density multiplier by default is just 1, right? So I actually multiply like 4 times to be able to capture a lot of the hair like that, right? And I mean, like you can barely see in the render. See a little bit right there? It's very, very subtle, you know? So yeah, sometimes you have to add a lot to be able to see it correctly, right? And I mean, like depending on the computer, obviously, but it's working pretty fine here. Each one of the of the hairs has only like 8 steps, right? So it's working pretty okay. It's pretty dense. And then for the eyelashes, I basically kept like tweaking a little bit more, but using the same stuff that I told you guys. So not a lot to see in there. I still have to make those ones a little bit thinner around here, just like the bottom ones. I changed actually the thickness of them. I can just pass you guys the values here just so you can see it. but I'm using like 0.06 for the lower ones, 0.06, oh, 0.006, but I'm also tweaking this curve, so making it a little bit like smaller in the root, then gets thicker, and then smaller all the way. And not using taper, just that. So this is for the lowers, and then for the upper, it's a little bit thicker, 0.009, so like 0.003 more. And then again, like I have a little bit of, you know, a little bit smaller in the root, grows, and then goes thinner all the way. And a couple of other things I noticed is like there's some modifiers here. For example, I forgot to mention the clump modifier. We just look at this top portion of the clump modifier. But if you keep going down here, you have a lot of stuff. You have curl modifier. I use this one, for example, like to create like some curly hair and stuff like that. You have like noise as well. There's noise and noise frequency. You can add, for example, clump plus noise. You know, it's like there are all kinds of stuff. And you can actually add curves in here to control everything. The curvature of the intensity of the noise across the hair. So you can have more scraggly, just like at the tips, but then completely straight at the, you know, at the roots. So it's a lot of control in there actually. So let's take a look at the eyebrow stuff. We need to do some grooming now, right? So let's just hide everything here. Let's pretend he doesn't have any hair. Let's hide those glasses too. So I'm just gonna try to groom some eyebrows here. So first thing you're gonna do, again, nothing stops you from adding like hair to the entire head and just adding a mask just around this area. But it's way lighter to work with XGen if you assign just to a small area. You know, it's like something, you know, you're not gonna have to expand more than that. So for example, like if I want to do some hair in here, I'm gonna turn my symmetry on first. Topology. Just gonna click like some center line here, any of them like that. Okay, so now it should be symmetrical, cool. So let's just paint a little mask in here. So let's say I wanna paint, oh, actually I need to switch to faces. So let's see my, let's say like my eyebrow is around this area here, right? Something like that. So just to guarantee things, I'm gonna make it bigger than that. I'm gonna expand it like that. I'm gonna make it like a unibrow here. Let's make a unibrow. And then bigger than what I expect it to be, because I wanna have a little buffer to add some strays in there. And obviously I can use my peach fuzz to complete it, but I can do something like that, like a bigger area. Right, and I know that my my hair is not going to be, it's not going to extrapolate this selection here. That's why I'm making it bigger, right? So I have a unibrow in there. So what I'm going to do now, I'm just going to assign a new interactive how you call it, description, right? So we're going to put here eyebrows. Now for the intensity, Google is your friend. You can just do like a number of hairs on human eyebrow, for example, something like that. Just 250. I believe this is BS. Yeah, 250. You see, like, but never plucked brows can have as many as you know, 1100 total, right? So so let's basically, like, you can go as far as like 2200 for both of them, right? We're not going to go that far, but let's keep just remember that this guy here is probably not going to have any eyebrows at the end. I'm just going to do this to be able to teach you guys. But for example, I'm going to keep like a, let's say an amount like that, like 1600 for both of them, right? So for the length, I don't need to care too much right now because I'm going to be using guides. And for the CV count, we're going to put something generous here, like maybe like 64. Yeah. So that's basically what I have for my monobrow in there for now. So let's add a modifier, put some guides in here, right? So let's do this. Let's click the main node, modifier guide, click the guide, and then you're gonna go down here and you're gonna say input guide create, right? So now you see, like, I have a bunch of them in there, right? But the thing is, like, I wanna have more control over it. I don't want this scattered, stuff in there. So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna click this button here, which is the density tool, which is like, it's basically Satan. You don't touch it, okay? Ever to do like brushing stuff, because it breaks Exchange super easily when you do that. But I use it just for flooding purposes. So if I go now to guide in here, make sure you do this first. Guide, you're gonna expand your guide, and you're gonna go to sculpt, and you're gonna turn on your edit, right? Because you wanna make sure you're sculpting the guides themselves and not the hair. So click edit and click the guide itself here, the little X, right? Under the main node, click the in guide and edit. Now, what you can do, you can go to tool settings and just make sure you have selected the density tool, right? And there is a flood setting here. And you can set a value to, I think by default it says increase. You just put set and you put the value 0. So set to 0, and then you're gonna say flood. Now you basically removed all of them. So it's very useful for that kind of stuff, you know. So now that's all gone, you can just go and create your own guides. So I'm gonna click this one here, the placement one, place tool. And I can actually go to symmetry, and I can do this symmetrically just to save some time. So I'm just gonna go here, and I'm gonna add like 2 of them around here. The length seems okay. So I'm gonna do like the top part first. I'm gonna do like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. If I need 6, I can put the 6th one right there, for example, right? So the top one's gonna look like this. So I can now go to this one here, which is the comb brush, and make sure you have selected edit and in guide, and then you can go here. Let's just do symmetrical again. And you first like start with them going down from the top. They're gonna go down like that. Something like that. And then you can freeze them. Remember, the freeze just like helps to lock things in place. So basically, like you're gonna do like a freeze, this little one here, and then you're gonna freeze the whole thing. So next time you add the next batch here, you're not gonna affect them. So you're gonna go again, click the guide. Gonna put like here, and then I'm gonna make like little V's, like in, I was about to say na verdade, which is Portuguese, right? I'm mixing everything here. All right, so this one here, and then you can go up now. So basically it's gonna go up, up, up. So you're gonna create this kind of like little crease in the middle, right? Like where both meet. So they're meeting right there. So now, I mean, like this is like the basics of the eyebrow, right? So from this point on, obviously you can start adding more in here to actually change the direction in there. But you know, it's like at this point here, I can start maybe like reducing the length of it. Let's get this increment minus. Let's see. Okay. It's kind of working, but it's a little choppy. Oh, I know why. It's because it's based on the surface. So the brush fell off in here. I'm gonna just switch to from surface to screen. So it's gonna be faster now. Oh, let's do so yeah, so I can start like making things a little smaller. And then if I want to freeze them as well and add another batch here, for example, more like in the middle, I can just add one around, let's say here. And this guy, I can actually brush up, starting to change direction, you know. It's a little messy right here, but you know, it's like eventually we get it to work. It's just like showing the principle of it. And then, so now we have like this gigantic monobrow in there. It's not looking great at all, right? It's just like a basic thing. So what we can do to make things easier for us, obviously, like you can always use that all those tricks, right? For example, like that I showed you guys before. instead of like sculpting the guides themselves, you can switch back, for example, and create like a sculpt layer, and then you can turn it on. So it can cheat the whole thing by shrinking those guys here and just like trimming the whole thing down, right? Like I would not use this guy here, the density tool, which if it worked, it would be perfect for that, but it doesn't work very well. So you could, for example, like shrink them, not the guides, but the actual hair here, right? Shrink them until you get like the right design, or you can actually create a mask. So the mask can be very useful. To create a mask, I just come to ZBrush. I'm gonna duplicate this base mesh here, and let me just isolate it. And then let's create a little mask in here. It doesn't need to be super high resolution. So I'm gonna do like, we can reverse it. So let's do the mask is supposed to be like black, no hair, and then white with hair, right? So either can paint it straight away here, or if it's easier to see it visually, then I can paint like the opposite and then reverse the map. I can show you how to do that. So I'm gonna go to white, and I'm gonna go to RGB, gonna paint everything white, fill object, right? And just gonna add like some eyebrows here. And then it's gonna respect actually the levels of gray. So if you want like slightly less, you can paint like gray, you know. But here, basically, you're gonna be designing the eyebrows the way you want your character to have the eyebrows, right? So I'm gonna go standard, oops, RGB. So I'm gonna start with, for example, a little thicker around here. Gonna go a little thinner, a little bit more curved. Let's see something like that, and then a little bit lower here, maybe a bit squarer. He's not gonna have eyebrows, but or maybe just a tiny little bit of them for sure. Yeah, but basically like you're gonna be designing the eyebrow the way you want it in there. And then if you want to introduce like some grays in here, then you can just do like with a lower intensity, right? Like maybe like 5 or something like that. You can just like add a little bit of gray just to have a little bit of, maybe like in this area here. But I will not worry too much because we're going to be doing a lot of the blending with Peach Fuzz, actually. I can show you that. So if you have something like this, all we have to do now is export this map. Make sure that obviously it has the same UVs as everything, right? It has evil eyebrows in there. Looks a little evil. It's going to be funny. So let's do, let's just export this one. I can just name the subtool like hair density, for example. And I can use this one for everything. I can use the single map for everything. You know, it's like I can paint the hair in here and the hair for the main hair and everything. Because since you're applying just like in selected faces, it should work for both, you know. For example, when I apply the whole thing like a new setting for the main hair, I'm not gonna select those faces. So the same map should work fine, even though this one has eyebrows, right? So let's just export this one. So it should be very fast. Multi-map exporter, texture from Polypaint. I can use like a low resolution, still 4K. I would go like 2K, but maybe 4K is gonna work a bit better. And then create all maps. Let's go to source images. Hair density, let's see. Should export what, like 4 maps? First, second, third, and one more. There you go. Cool. 22 seconds. So now for the density of the hair. So the way it works is like this. You're going to go to your eyebrows, right? The main node. And then you're going to find the eyebrows base right here. And then you see there's a density mask in here. So you can click this little box in here to assign a map. So I'm going to click File. It's going to be the same deal. You're going to have to turn on your UV tile, right? And under Arnold, I'm going to turn off my TX texture. And then here should be okay if I just bring the map here, hair density. And you're probably not going to see a lot of stuff going on. So it's the opposite effect. Can you see right there? Like it's bald in the middle. It's because we have to reverse that map, right? So basically, like I painted, like I mentioned before, like I painted black where it should be white and white where it should be black. So you can go to effects in here in the map. You just click invert. So now it has assigned to that area. But now, of course, like you can use the color balance and you can play with those values. Let's see, alpha is luminance, sorry. With alpha is luminance here, let's see if it works. Huh, I had this going on before, let's see. Okay, this one works. So I guess I'm gonna have to use a little bit of maybe like negative offset. Oops. Something like that, yeah. So a negative offset here just to help to actually define those areas a little bit better, you know? So now I have like my alpha gain is at 1 and a negative offset here just to help to, you know, it goes from this to our map, right? That should be something around there. So now you have like some semi-okay eyebrows. So much you can do with it, right? Like first thing we can add here is a modifier. Always start with noise, you know? And when you add the noise, it doesn't look like, it looks like it's a lot of, there's a lot of mess here. It's very messy, right? But it's surprising sometimes that when you render something that looks a little bit more natural in the viewports, something like this, it still looks very, very smooth when you render it. So I tend to exaggerate a little bit, you know? Sometimes it looks a little funky, but it turns out pretty well in the renders normally, you know? So basically, like you can use your magnitude in there to actually add more or less, right? So you're just gonna add a little bit more in there. Something like that. The profile is very plain. We don't have anything assigned like in terms of shape for the eyebrows. So what I'm gonna do here, let's just assign a shader first. Let's go to Arnold shader. I'm gonna go to standard hair. And just gonna rename it to eyebrows. Select the main node right there, and then right click, assign material to viewport. Now it's black, which is basically what we want. So click on it again, go to your eyebrow shape, and here now we're gonna add that little curve that we normally do, right? So we're gonna make the root a little bit thinner. I'm gonna make everything splines here. I'm gonna go higher. I'm gonna go lower. I'm gonna go all the way down. Something like that. Let's see, spline. Oh, spline. Oh, this is linear. It's not gonna change though. This is spline, right? Something like that. So now we have a nice little curve in there for the profile, but I have to play with the thickness here, right? So for the thickness, what we can do, we can actually add like a couple of different nodes in here. The thing is, like, once you have those nodes assigned, you cannot override it. Basically, like if you assign it right here, this is the top of the food chain, right? That means that the width that you play with in here is gonna be baked. And then even if you add modifiers and stuff, this is gonna still be over all of that. So if you can use like a map for the width scale, but then, you know, it's like I said, like that's basically baked. You cannot change the scale after that, you know, manually, even if you add like a modifier, because this is at the very top of everything. But I can show you how to do it just in case here. For example, like if for the width scale, I can add like a noise modifier in here. So let's add a noise from Maya. So this one here, right? See, like it's very, very thick right now. So first thing I'm gonna do, I'm gonna switch from billow to Perlin noise. I'm gonna add a lot of frequency here, like 200 or something like that. And now we're gonna play with the amplitude and then the threshold. Let's see, let's go back in here, and also let's see the color balance. Let's switch to alpha's luminous and bring it down. Something like that. And then let's see 0.015. And then let's play with those values in here. So playing with the amplitude, you see I'm already getting some variation in there. Some very thin ones and some very thick ones. So I can have like a lot of variation just by playing with them around here. Oops. Right? So it's cool that you have like, you know, some variation there. The problem is if you want to make those guys go thinner, like I said before, you know, it's like a, you're not going to be able to do this because this is assigned to the very top of it. But if it's, for example, like this type of a modifier here is helpful, for example, if you want to add variation, like for stuff like nose hair, you know, or you know, it's like even the eyelashes, you know, although the eyelashes, I want to have control over the thin ones. But peach fuzz, things like that, you know, it's like it should work fine. But if I go back in here now, you're going to see I have that plugged in there. I can, you know, either use it or disconnect it. But for example, like if I try to add a modifier here to sculpt, right? So I have a sculpt layer in here because this is at the top of the whole chain here. Even if I try to sculpt like the thickness, it shouldn't work. At least it didn't work in the past. So let's try, for example. Yeah, nothing changes here, see? Now, if I remove it from here, now I don't have the variation anymore. But at least I can actually play with the thickness of everything. So the sculpt layer here, let's see, 1 maximum width. Let's do like a much smaller. Oops, very, very strong. Let's put like negative like that. So now at least I can play with this, you know, it's like I can manually just like make some of them disappear. And it's actually pretty cool because I can go like and really make those lower ones here disappear completely if I want to. And the only thing here that's a little inconvenient is that you're probably going to have to, you know, it's like if you want to add variation, you're going to have to do kind of like manually. You know, it's like add some variation in there. I'm not remembering right now, but I think there's a way to actually add a noise in another place to get that. But yeah, so, but you know, in general, you always have a way to do something. Sometimes it takes more time because you have to do something a little bit more manually, like I'm doing right now, to add some variation, you know, for example, get that one thicker. But for the most part, I mean, like nothing stops you from creating like as many sculpt layers as you want. And just reminder that they all use sliders, right? So you can actually play with that and tweak things and make things, you know, it's like vanish and come back. Oh, interesting. This one is not actually affecting it. Sometimes, you know, sometimes what happens is that XGen, because it's very buggy, it gets into this weird unstable mode. And then sometimes you're not seeing the result in the screen, but it's actually doing it behind the scenes. And then sometimes you save your shard file. And then when you open your file again, everything is a mess because you play with all those values and you're changing things without seeing them. So you have to be careful with that, you know. Let's see. Yeah, this one at this point is working. So so basically, like for the eyebrows, I use like just like those little things, few, you know, nodes in there, and also some clump. So let's do like a add modifier. We have to see if the clump works better before or after the noise. So let's just add it first. Same thing, you know, it's like it looks very funky until you change this density under the clump to around like something high, like 150 or something. And then let's try maybe a little bit less, like 100. Yeah. So at this point here, you can play with it, you know, get more or less. And also, if you put this one, let's see, like under the clumping here, if I want to do, for example, under the sculpt, create my own clumps, just remember you can always use the sculpt layer or create a brand new one and use this clump brush right there. And just have to make sure that the intensity is not too high because it's quite powerful, but you can really clump this whole area together, you know, like to create that little peak, the eyebrow in there, right around the middle. If those ones are looking too big, same thing, like you can go there and just like shrink them a little bit. Something like that. Like everything is like kind of like manual work, right? And then on top of this whole thing here, obviously you can keep adding more guides now if you want, but also you can add like individual hairs, just like we added the guides before, right? We click this little guy here to add the new guides. You can click the place tool, but instead of guides, we're gonna be using adding actually individual hairs. So you can just go here. I'm gonna turn off my symmetry. Let's see. You can just go here. Look at that. Just like carefully placing everything, you know. And then, you know, it's like it interpolates. So basically right here, I have my interpolation off, but if I turn on, it should get smaller like that. Look, it's actually interpolating with the rest. Let's see what happens in the middle here. Try to interpolate between both of them. But the thing is, like, I'm able to do this because this whole area was selected when I assigned my shader, right? My shader, my description. If I try to place a hair in here, see, I click, nothing happens. In here, nothing happens. It's only in that area where the selection was original that things work, you know? So, and then you might ask, like, you see like how fast the interaction is here for the eyebrows? It's pretty fast, right? Like, I mean, like, I have no trouble. Now, let's see what happens. I'm gonna save this file just for the sake of it. Let's do like a hair test, because I'm not gonna be using that for my character, but so let's see what happens if I need to expand this area. Let's say, like, by any chance, like you sculpted and then for some reason you want to expand this area so you can actually place hair in other areas. The only way I found to do that is to actually export and re-import it. And I can show you this, how it works, because it can be a nice backup. So basically, like, if you click the top node, you want to export the eyebrows in this case, you can go to descriptions and you can say preset export. So it's gonna ask to save the scene again. And I'm gonna show you like what happens like when you have a backup if something goes missing, then you can actually recover it. So you can actually zoom in here and create like a nice snapshot, something like that. Nice snapshot in there. And I'm gonna select a layer in here, file, where to save it. I'm gonna save within my scenes. You're just gonna create like an eyebrows test one, something like that. Then save. It's gonna give that, right? And then you're just gonna say export. It's gonna take a little bit. Oh, it was pretty fast actually. So check this out. So now, if I just like, I'm gonna hide this whole thing here. Let's say I wanna re-import that, right? So I'm just gonna select the mesh itself. Let's pretend you can even delete this one at this point. You can just like, and then you select the mesh, and let's pretend like for each one of those you did a backup. So that means you can recover the hair if something goes wrong, which might happen with XGen, you know, so it might be a good trick. But the thing is, like, every time you import, it gets a little bit heavier, right? It's not gonna be as smooth as it was before. So I'm gonna click the mesh itself, and then I'm gonna go to descriptions, preset import, and I'm gonna point to that same file, eyebrows test. And now I'm gonna do, you can either do position-based or UV-based. I'm gonna do UV-based because even if you change the head position or anything, if it's UV-based, it's gonna reassign to a head that's not exactly in the same position anymore, you know? And then for your orientation, I'm gonna just do like use original orientations in the workspace. You're just gonna click import. Takes a little bit to calculate. And that's the eyebrows in there, right? So it has a kind of like a prefix in there. You add the eyebrow task, blah, blah, blah. You can remove the prefix if you want to by going to the window, well, where is it? General editors, and then go to namespace editor. You can just go here, for example, eyebrows. Oh, actually, that's not a prefix. I think this is easy to just rename it. Let's try this. Let's go to edit. Is it edit or modify? Modify. Search and replace names. Let's just do the selected ones, and you can just put like eyebrows test one, like that. Replace with, you can just put a space. And it basically like renames everything. So that's the clean names in there for you. So at this point here, it works the same way. So if you have like an edit turned on in here, in theory, you should be able to actually just keep like sculpting it, just like nothing happened, you know. It's actually quite fast. Maybe they fix some of this stuff because it used to get like super heavy once you import it that way, but it seems like it's pretty real time now. So hopefully they fix something. That would be nice. So yeah, it's a little trick, like in case you need to expand that area. So check this out. Now, now that we re-imported this way, remember we are trying to place some of the hair around here and down there. It didn't work, right? So let's try this again. Look at that. Now it should work everywhere. It kind of locks. It's interpolating, so it's probably like underneath the skin in there somewhere. But if I click the interpolated, turn it off, you should be able to see the hair. There it is. So now you can actually place anywhere you want, you know. So it's a cool little trick in there. So one thing, like just delete this one, hoping that's not gonna, you know, completely destroy my scene. Let's see this one. Pass, yes. So let's turn on this one, which is the one that we had before. And then another thing we can do, it's to add like stray hairs, for example. To add stray hairs, there are a couple of ways to do it, right? One way is to actually create them manually. So in that case, you would just click eyebrows, edit, and then freeze everything. So for example, freeze all of them like that, right? And you can add some of them like manually like that, just like one. And then, you know, that's one way to do it. You just like create a bunch of them, and then you can just like sculpt them to your heart's content, right? Make them like look a little weird and, you know, it's like a little curved in different ways like that. Probably like stray hairs, they're gonna have to be a little bit thicker sometimes, you know, so maybe add a little thickness to them. Let's see, where is it? Here. Let's see. Is it getting thicker? Yes. Okay. So you can do that manually, right? So it's a possibility. Or you can just like create another description altogether and just call it like stray hairs, and then you can just add like different parts of the head. But there's another one that's using basically like a noise modifier. So you're just gonna, you know, do that. So you see I already got some of them in there, right? Which is kind of cool. I did a lot of that for, let's see, for I can show you the model here. Let me see if I can find it. And then let's go to this guy, images, and then I think this, can you see right here? Like an old render from like a couple of years ago. But like, yeah, so like those stray hairs right there, it's kind of added this way, you know, just a few of them. But then I discovered a different way, which is basically like adding a modifier with a lot of noise to it. So for example, like if you go to noise modifier and you just say like noise right here, and then if I click this one, I can make it very extreme so you can see what's going on. So you can see like magnitude, like something like that, right? And if I don't use the preserve length, it's gonna get bigger naturally, right? So I'm gonna keep it like very weird like that. And then you can see like there's a mask in here, right? So you can actually plug a map in here, same deal. Plug a noise. And then let's do the same thing. Let's do like a purling noise. Let's do like a 200 in here for frequency, something like that. Let's see if the negative here works. So minus 0.5, something like that. So let's go higher. So you see like just a few of them are going to be affected if I go a little bit more like that. So you can create like some strong ones. So let's play with the threshold here. And then with the amplitude. And then let's go back here, maybe like remove some of them. So let's see, let's keep very strong and just play with threshold and amplitude. Let's see, until we get just a few of them to be affected like that. So this way you can get like a, you know, let's just go back in here to see the difference with and without it. So this is with the noise and without it. So you can actually keep playing with it until you get just a few of them to be completely affected, you know. But it's a nice way to add like you know, some crazy hair, like strays, just like with a little simple modifier, you know. If I click this one, look, magnitude is super high right now. So let's go back in here. Let's try to tweak this a little bit more. Let's try, I think, like this one. Let's try maybe alpha gain. Alpha gain is bringing too much. Yeah, this one affects just a few of them right here. Yeah, you're gonna have to find the balance, you know, it's like between like just a few of them and then how much intensity you're gonna get for it. Yeah, like that. Yeah, I'm pretty sure you guys are gonna be able to find like a sweet spot in there. But yeah, I have to be careful because I mean, like here, I mean, like if I just do this, I had just a few of them, right? But if I keep going higher, then a lot of them are going to be affected. Yeah, so it's useful, you know, very useful for this kind of stuff. Now for the shader, let's talk about the shader a little bit because we talked about the shader for the eyelashes, and you know now that you can add like ramp maps, right? Like to create all kinds of stuff. But let's take a look at this. So for the hair shader here, let's do, let's see if we can do like a quick render without any depth of field. Just remove the depth of field here. And without a lot of resolution either. You have what, like for resolution 2000, let's do like 1000. And then let's do like 8. And then progressive render anyway. So let's see. I wish they had the name of each one of those windows so you can see what you're opening and closing. Okay, so let's do a quick render here. Let's see if we can get this guy to show us some eyebrows. Well, one thing that I did actually, I forgot to mention for the eyelashes is that I had to change like the specular level. I can show you what I have right now, actually all the settings. But don't worry, I'm gonna give, definitely like before the end of the week, we're gonna be talking about this, like going through all the shaders and basically like updating you guys on everything. But let's see with this black hair in here what happens. It's gonna be so funny to see him with the eyebrows for the first time. All right, so let's open that. So we know that the eyebrows are working. They're very super black, right? Obviously, like this whole area gonna have to do more work, right? Like make sure that they're flowing and everything correctly. Add some more guides in there to help me out with that. But let's take a look at the shader itself. So if it's too black like this, it rarely works for me, you know. But if you go to the shader in here, so the first thing you're gonna do, I'm gonna switch this from melanin at 1. I'm gonna bring it down to something like, let's see, like 0.8. It might be still a little bit dark, but the lower as you get, right, you go here, the wider it gets. So it's gonna get like completely albino right here, right? But if you go higher, let's say something around here, a little bit past halfway, you get like a nice darker brown. And then there's this melanin randomizing here, which is really cool. Look what it does. So it's introducing some whites in there in the middle, in the mix. So you're gonna get a little bit kind of like this salt and pepper kind of thing, you know. But on top of that, you can actually play with the base color, and you can use the base color with the noise modifier as well to help to introduce even more variation, add more whites in there, you know. So there's that possibility as well. For the melanin redness, I'm not gonna use redness because if you have like against the light, it gets super red sometimes. So I can actually add just a little bit of it. And this is basically like the part that that worked the best for the eyelashes. like the index of refraction by default is 1.55. And basically, like, look at what I have for my eyelashes at this point. I can show you right now. Index of refraction is at 1, and this one at 1 as well. So it's kind of like it doesn't seem like much, you know. It's like I actually add a lot of spec to it. So it's like a super sharp spec, 0.02 instead of like 200. So you get that sharp little speck in the eyelashes. But also the index of refraction is just 1 right now. I think at some point I had like 1.005 or something. I was testing like 1 by 1, like doing all those tests. And it seemed like to reflect just enough, you know. It's like I don't want super shiny anyway. But maybe the eyebrows work better with a higher reflection. I don't know, but I'm probably would bring this down anyway. Like start with at least like 1.2 or something like that. And so yeah, so for the eyebrows, that's basically what I would do. In terms of if I want to go more brown, right? Like keep going down with this one. It's gonna get blonder and blonder. So it's starting to get a little blonde in there. Around here should be quite blonde. A bit kind of yellow, a little bit higher. Yeah, so you know, it's a matter of like really seeing what you have in your references, right, and try to match it. Now that melanin randomized, look, it introduced some black hairs in the middle of the yellows in here, which is kind of cool, right? Just to have some variation. If the one is much variation, you can just keep like halfway, for example. You should add like some of them, but you know, just more mixed with the whole thing. And with no melanin variation at all, then everything becomes the same color, right? Kind of yellow in this case here. So let's take a look at the blending the hair now. So let's keep the melanin a little bit higher so it gets a little bit darker in there.
Hey, Chris.
Yes.
Does your vellus hair shader, is the color, or the melanin rather, is it always 0?
Oh, let me take a look. Let's take a look here. It's actually 0.05.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's not completely white. It has a tinge of yellow in it. And look at my roughness here. So like for the vellus hair, I have 0.4. And then for the index of refraction, it's just like 1.002. This prevents a ton of problems, you know. It's like sometimes with the vellus hair, if you don't have like a very high sample for your renders, it catches the speck in a way that everything becomes like lots of like super shiny dots. And it's really,
that's happening to me right now.
yeah, very hard to resolve. So 2 things you can try. You try this first. So the index of refraction very low. Try roughness. Try to copy exactly like that. And then there's another thing. Basically, like if you go to your vellus right here, let's go into this vellus shape. So like the shape of the node. If you go down here, there are 2 things you have to do. I forgot to mention last time when you're doing the eyelashes, but I need you guys to do this for the eyelashes too. So if you expand Arnold, make sure you switch from ribbon to thick for both the vellus hair and the eyelashes. I think like for the eyebrows, it might work better as well. It was like night and day, you know. It's like the manual says that it normally renders better for in ribbon mode. And they say like, unless you want to do like a spaghetti or something like that, don't use thick. But, you know, in my own test, when I was doing the test with vellus hair, I could see clearly the difference, and it was much, much better with thick. So I used thick. And then for the eyelashes, I switched to thick as well. Now for the vellus, another thing that I did, I removed the cast shadows, but I kept self shadows. So it's kind of like it's to me it's like a saving of time saving, you know, because it doesn't have to calculate the shadows for each one of them, and they're so tiny that in real life probably like the shadow would be basically none. You know, it's like you know, kind of semi-transparent anyway. So I turned off the shadows, but I kept the self shadows, because if you don't, then if you have the peach fuzz in an area that's completely away from the light, then they kind of like, they still look shiny even though they are away from the light. So you have to keep the self shadow, but this should work. You know, it's like a combination between the removing the cast shadows and then reducing that specular. It should really solve the problem for you. This one here.
Thank you.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned because I had to remember like those things I was doing during the week. I was like, I have to remember to tell them, you know. So I'm glad you asked. So good. All right. So for the eyebrows now, let's say we have our vellus hair in place, right? It's all there. And now we have the vellus hair and then we have the eyebrows. So we can go both ways. We can actually paint the eyebrows with a thickness brush, right? With the tool to actually shrink them and make them thinner, right? At the same time. Or we can do the opposite. We can actually grow our vellus hair and get them to actually mix with the hair itself, right? So let's try that. Let's play with the vellus hair here. And I'm gonna add another modifier. Let's do like a sculpt brush, a sculpt modifier. Expand it, click edit. Just remember to do that. Otherwise, you're gonna be screwing something up. And then I'm gonna go to the length tool. And I'm just gonna start growing those guys. So let's see. Let's go even like higher so I can actually see what's doing there. Oh, it's a lot, right? I have a lot of vellus hair now. But check this out. So I can actually grow them. Starting from here. And then from underneath as well. Just grow all the way around the eyebrows themselves. You can actually do this, look. Yeah, it's gonna be harder to see this way. Just gonna bring them longer around the whole thing. And then selectively, we're gonna make them a little bit thicker as well so they start to blend all the way around the eyebrows. It has a ton of it, bro. It's gonna be a little tricky. So now I can actually add some thickness, right? It's still under the same sculpt layer. You can just like crank this one a little bit more. Let's do a, oh, let's see, next one. Okay, so now it's starting to actually add some more. But the thing is, like, in the past I would use much less vellus hair, but this guy has a ton of it. So at this point here, it's almost like I would have to add kind of like a mask, just like I added for the eyebrows. Have a mask actually to control the density around this area, you know, it's like to get a little bit less of them. And also for the color of the hair, it would be nice if actually the color was switching more towards the color of the eyebrow, you know. So you see, like at this point here, because I have a ton of peach fuzz, it's gonna look a little funny. But another thing you could try, instead of doing this whole thing I'm doing here, let's do the other side here, is to actually freeze everything. You could, for example, like freeze an area like this, the peach fuzz, right? Just freeze it. And you could potentially, for example, just add manually specific ones. So for example, like you would click right there. The problem is that just to interpolate with it, it's gonna be a little bit tricky because it has to interpolate with everything. So at this point here, it's almost like either you have like less density than I do have in here, or you use a mask to reduce that intensity, or you can create a brand new description, for example, that's just a blending. You know, it's like there are so many different ways to do this stuff. So for example, like you create like a, select that area again, like, let's see if we still have the faces selected. Yeah, select like that, and you should just create like, for example, like eyebrows blend, something like that. And then just see how many hairs you're gonna need like to do the blending, right? So create something like that. And now you can use that to blend it and just like do the whole thing again, right? Like do the, yeah, at this point here, you probably don't need to use guides. You know, it's like you can do just like straight away because I mean, it's just a blending anyway. So you can just do something like, you know, like start like from the top like that. And then from here, from the bottom up. If it's just a blending hair, you probably don't even need the, you know, so use guides in here, just in case if you need to do it, then you do it. But I mean, something like that, it would work. And then obviously you would have to to add like the right amount of thickness and maybe like add some length in certain ones, a little bit more in certain, and just make sure that they are thin enough to blend with the rest, right? And then don't forget to add like a noise modifier, but don't go too crazy with this one. Let's do like a less magnitude, something like that, right? So yeah, there are many ways to do that. You know, it's like the important thing is that you get like a nice transition. The vellus hair is very important, for example, in transitions like this area here between the hair itself and then the, you know, the sideburns. And also like this area around the forehead, like the meeting between the forehead and the hair itself, if your character has hair. Definitely use the vellus hair to actually blend it, you know. But if you watch some of my previous classes, what I did, it's exactly what I just did now. I create a brand new description just for the blend area. So I create like a band around here just against the hair. And then it was brand new description just like to blend the things together, you know. And then just making sure when you assign those, you know, it's like the profile for each one of them, make sure that it's thin enough, you know. It's like that's not something like it's going to be fighting like that, right? Fighting the eyebrow. It has to be thinner than the eyebrow. It has to have a nice profile, either like a taper to look more like that, right? Kind of a bit of thinner tips, or just use the curve like we did, or a combination of both. Basically like this one, just bring to a point. Same deal. This spline, this spline, that spline too. So something like that, right? So, oops. So if it's too, you know, if it's too thin, just add like the general thickness in here. And then at any time, if it's like closer to the hair here, you can just add some thickness, like custom, right? Like that. And then slowly you're gonna start blending things together, you know. You're gonna start like to blend with the hair. So yeah, like lots of different ways to do it. Just like a matter of choice, I suppose. So this is basically like the overall approach for the eyebrows. I mean, like other than that, it's just like manual labor, right? Like it, you know, so many ways to do this stuff. I mean, like you see, like, you know, it's like I can deselect this stuff and, you know, it's like freeze certain things. For example, like you can customize just one single hair, for example, right? I can go here, let's see, eyebrows. Let's turn this one on so I can actually, oh, that's the vellus hair, sorry. This one. I have to select it so I can actually unfreeze the whole thing. There's an actual button to just unfreeze everything automatically, but. So let's say, for example, like you want to pick just one of the hairs and then just like sculpt it manually, right? You can do something like this. Check this out. So let's see, eyebrows blend. That's not it. So eyebrows. So I click my sculpt again. I'm gonna make my brush very small, like B. Oops, B, and then drag it very tiny like that. And just like, let's say like, oh, it's symmetrical right now. Let's try symmetry off. So you just get like, let's pretend like we want to sculpt just this guy. And then maybe something a little far away like this guy. And then maybe something up here in this guy. Oops, that one didn't select. Oh, it's from another description, sorry. It's from another description. So if I want to sculpt just those three ones that I selected manually, you just go to your sculpt, the comb brush, and you can just say invert frozen effect. So now if I try to sculpt them, you're gonna affect just the blue guys here now. Look. So you can use this for everything. Like for the main hair tomorrow we're gonna be doing, you know, it's like you can pick like one single hair and do this. You can pick a bunch of similar ones in the same region, you know, so I can do that as well. You can create your stray hairs like that, just selecting like a few of them manually, you know. There's, again, like so many different ways to do it. But what I want you guys to see is that how much control you have from being able to add like one by one exactly what you need to being able to select one by one and sculpt just the hair you need to sculpt, you know. It's like The guides are very cool, but it's kind of like overrated, you know. It's like it's great to get like the main shapes and everything, but the flexibility you have to sculpt everything else manually, it's pretty impressive, you know. It's like, that's why I love the interactive. It's a shame that it's so buggy sometimes, you know, but it's very, very flexible. And the fact it's a very artistic oriented tool, you know, it's like, it's just like what you see is what you get. So you're basically like sculpting like you would do like the surface, right? But you're sculpting hair, which is, it's pretty cool.
So Chris.
Yes.
So I've actually, I guess you could I've been a patron of Jesus for a few months now. And I'm kind of convinced to do it this way you're showing us now, the interactive room. Doing the XGen core is just, it's hell.
It's hell, isn't it?
Yeah, it really is.
Yeah, I mean, like, he's so good at the stuff he does, man. And I've seen like some of my students had like some big problems with interactive, to the point that they forced themselves to learn core, and still they were able to actually pull it off, you know, with core. But the thing is, like, for me as an artist, you know, it's like, I'm not kind of like a guy who like totally like into formulas or whatever. I do some programming, but I'm not hardcore in it. I just like to see things, you know, exactly the way I want it to happen, instead of like by happy accidents, you know. So I really like it, you know, it's just much more control for an artist, but it comes with bugs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, like, I'm not trying to be a groomer.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, same with me.
Just trying to make something look good.
Yeah, that's the point, right? Like, I even posted about that. I mean, like, I'm not specialist in anything. I'm just like an artist trying to convey some ideas, you know, and whatever works, you know. I asked, like, I think a couple of people asked Jesus or Jesus before, and he mentioned like that, you know, it's like you can do basically a lot of stuff with either techniques, you know. And some people mix both, actually. They start with core and then switch to interactive, just like to refine things. But yeah, lots of different ways.
Yeah, I wonder if I can export my guides from core and import them into the interactive.
So let's take a look here now. So let's pretend like we are happy with that, right? We did very fast, so not a lot to, you know, to be proud of. But then let's switch here to a different thing now. Since we have the vellus hair, we have the eyelashes, we have the eyebrows now, mustache and beard and all this stuff's gonna be basically the same deal, right? Let's see if I can just show you like a quick example of that. Let's see right here. Oops, this one. Okay, cool. So this one here, everything I had for when I did like Rick Baker's portrait back in the days, like, I don't remember when was that. Let's see if I have the date here. It was some time ago. When did I do that, man? I think it was like 2 or 3 years ago. Details. Okay, 2018, in May 2018. So yeah, it's been over 2 years. So I use a bunch of those techniques, right? Like I use like a noise to create like the type of like variation in the color and everything. And you see the beard, I did in 3 parts. I did this part, and I did, let's see if I have the video still. I used to have one. No, I don't. It's probably somewhere here. Huh, I saved that video somewhere. It's actually, I posted on my Instagram, but I'm not there now. Basically what I did, I created a, yeah, weird. I thought I had it right here, actually ready to show. But basically, like, the mustache was a description. The goatee was a description, and then there's this is the goatee, right? Like under the lip in here, something like that. So I have like this little area, and then I have the beard itself, and then the mustache, and I had this area here of the sideburns, right? And then the nose hair and all that stuff. So yeah, it's like all separate in different descriptions. So it doesn't matter. It doesn't mean like you have to do that like that. But if you want to have more control, sometimes it's better if you split, for example, mustache from the rest of the beard, you know, so you can have like more stuff, more space to control. So let's do some nose hair, which should be very fast and easy. So if I select my, let's do like UVs in here. If I double click, so I got like both nostrils in there. I'm gonna press Control F11 to switch to polygons, right? And I'm gonna try to eliminate some of those polygons. I don't want to select all of them. Let's do a face, and then this guy. So we're just gonna erase some of those around here, around this edge. I'm gonna keep them a little bit more internal, but then I'm gonna keep them growing all the way to this area right there. So I'm gonna just remove from this outer ring, and I'm gonna keep them growing all the way a little bit more internally right here. And let's see if it's good in there. Maybe too much around there. I can eliminate some of them in here, which is basically what I do in real life as an old man. I have those little machines just stick in your nose and just like goes, get all the, that's disgusting, guys. It's part of being old. Anyway, there you go. So you have like something like this. It should be simple enough. I'm gonna create another description here, interactive groom splines. We're gonna do like a nose hair. And then for the amount of them, I mean, like I can start with something very low like this and just grow. So let's start with this. Let's try maybe the length 4. See if it's too much. Maybe a little much, but not too much. Yeah, it's a little, I can just like reduce the whole thing. So a couple of things you can do here now. Let's do, start with reducing the size of them. You can add like a modifier scale, for example. And you can just like scale it down all the way like that. And then now we can actually introduce some more density. So I'm gonna go back to the top node, go to your base, so nose hair base. The density multiplier, be careful so you don't slide this like crazy because it's kind of real time. So if you crank a number here like 50, your machine is gonna crash or something. It's gonna take forever. So make sure you go like in increments. Let's see, like 3 here. If it's too much, we can, sometimes it looks like much, but it's because our profile is not tweaked. So for example, if you have to go here to your, and add a little curve in here. So let's see, let's start with the same deal. I always do the same thing, it gets boring. That's why like when I do those things over the weekend, it's basically like when I tell you guys, like I'm using basically the same techniques, it's just like doing the same thing over and over again. It's completely true, you know. It's just like, it's just work. It takes a lot of work to get stuff done. I spent probably like, I would say like close to 10 hours this weekend working on him. So that was a good chunk of time. So now we have like, you see like there's a little profile in there. So they look thinner, but they still very straight, right? So I can keep poking around here with the scale, maybe a little bit smaller like that. But remember that noise is always your friend. So I'm gonna click the top node, add some noise in here. And then I'm gonna make sure that the noise is not too big. It's just enough like that, right? And I mean, for the most part, that should do the trick, you know, it's like just like a few things here and there. But then obviously you can, you're free to add like modifier, sculpt, right? At any time, add it, and then you can play around as much as you need. Like, you know, if you want to remove some of those guys, make them smaller. Oops, that's the opposite. Make smaller around there. Maybe get some bigger in here. If the intensity, the density is too much, you know, it's like go ahead, go back to your nose base, you know, nose hair base or whatever you called it, and just like change the density again, you know, something like that. So it should be pretty straightforward, you know. It's like this is like the nose hair should be something like minimal, you know. And then for the shader, it's gonna be a similar thing, you know. It's like try not to go completely black. Go kind of like always a little bit lower in terms of melanin, because the black, it looks like you know, dye, you know, like someone painted it. But if you use like a dark brown, it normally looks a little bit more organic. You can always use, for example, like if you want to be very precious about stuff, you can always use like how you call like a gradient, and assign the gradient for your melanin, and then you can tweak, for example, like the connection point in the roots. You can make it a little bit lighter to mix with the color of the skin a little bit more, and then the rest a little darker, you know, just like we did with the eyelashes last week. So we can do that kind of stuff, you know. Yeah, so for the nose hair, I wouldn't do much here more other than, you know, maybe like tweaking here and there, like if the length is too much, you know, it's like trying to find a balance. But very, very simple stuff, you know. You guys have questions about the stuff today? I think we covered a lot of stuff, but definitely like ask me, and I'm gonna try my best here. I'm gonna try to cover as much as possible in the next like 3 days, and we have 3 days to go. But don't worry, I'm gonna be feeding you guys a lot of information those next 3 days.
Hey, Chris.
Mm-hmm.
I had a question about some rendering stuff.
Yes, yes.
Number of classes ago, back when you were showing it, I plugged in the not the auto bump, the micro bump node that you use with the bump 3D thing, or bump 2D.
Yeah.
I didn't have a weight mask in it or anything. I just plugged it in to try and calibrate it, and I kind of left it there.
Mm-hmm.
And I noticed just recently when I took it off that it was absolutely destroying my render times. I took it off and my render times increased by
really?
tenfold. Yeah, so I just wanted to ask you and check, is that something you experienced? Because it seriously more than doubles my render times having that node plugged in.
Oh man. Plugged in or removed?
Having it plugged in.
Oh, plugged in. Yeah, I mean, like I think yeah, I think it's gonna increase quite a bit. It's kind of like a procedural, and it should increase the render time. I didn't think it would increase that much, but you might be right, man. I think, yeah, I'm kind of spoiled with this fast machine now. But yeah,
I mean, it's not a big deal because it's a very subtle effect, and I need to calibrate it anyways. I was removing it because I'm working on areas where it's starting to mess up my displacement look.
Oh, so, yeah. If it's too hardcore, yeah.
So yeah, it's not a big deal right now, but I just wanted to make sure, because I've worked with bump before, but I've never actually sat down and tried to figure out how much is this affecting my render time. But I think you're right. I think it's because of how high we push the frequency or whatever.
Yes.
Be super detailed, but I was surprised. I saw the number drop and I went, hold on a second.
Oh, one thing I tell you guys, I mean, like sometimes Maya acts very funny, you know. It's like sometimes, like you said, if you have like nodes connected and then you disconnect some nodes, there's kind of like a ghost that stays, you know. It's like some broken connections. And the funny thing is that they have all those freaking, you know, things like you can try. Like where is it? Like there's this optimized scene size that's supposed to remove a lot of the crap stuff that's left behind, and it doesn't. So in a couple of those classes, actually, what I had to do was to select everything that was in the scene. For example, like I selected all the meshes in the scene, so all the meshes and also all the hair stuff. So like basically like everything like I had, and then basically like select everything in your scene, right? And then from that point on, just like something like that. So like hair and everything. Yeah. And then I would have to export the selection as MB and then start fresh in another scene. The only thing that it sucks is that when you bring to another scene, then you're going to have to reset like everything for your render settings and everything. But a few times I had to do this, man, like to clean up stuff, like because there was no way. Another thing that I noticed, like this is like back in the day, I don't know if they fixed that, but there was a problem when we were using like sometimes like you're modeling something, and all of a sudden the model gets some nodes disconnected. For example, the same thing, right? Like you have something in there, you just like click select and delete, and then you delete something, and then the mesh gets all wacky. So it's out. You can see the cage of the geometry itself, but the geometry is not working anymore. So when I got to that weird stuff, I would have to go to the hypergraph, delete one additional node, I don't remember which one, and then I would click like the cage that was left behind that has no, shader assigned or anything. I would go to modify, and then I would convert to polygon to sub D, right? And then from sub D to back to polygon, and that would completely fix the model. So Maya has those things, you know, sometimes you have to work around, but it's not the most like, you know, it's like 20 years old, 22 years old software, and it's still full of bugs, you know, just like 3D Max, right? They just keep adding more crap and became like just like plugin after plugin, and then the main stuff in the core is still kind of broken. But I mean, it's the standard of our industry, right? So we use it basically. There was another thing I wanted to talk to you guys about. Let's since we are here, we have 10 minutes. Let's open the scene like an old file and talk about the clothes, the cloth shader. Someone asked me before. So let's get this out of the way so we can actually just focus on the hair tomorrow. So let's get, let's open an old file here to Stan Winston. And by all means, guys, if you have like questions about some of the models you see, like something I posted online, you know, if you want to know how I did certain things, just ask me. We can just open the file and then we can go through it, you know. There's another thing I want to show you guys probably like in the next couple of days is that kind of like flashlight effect to create like, it's like, that's the best trick ever, man. Because sometimes the model is not even that great and you use some flashlight and it looks real. So there's this, obviously all those renders of him are all with this flashlight effect, right? So catch like a tiny little, you know, reflection in the eyes and stuff. And the best thing about the flashlight is that it's perfect to calibrate your, the sweat pass, which is basically like the coat in the skin. It works really great because you can see how much it spreads just by having a tiny little light source like this one. The only trick about this is actually you just have to constrain basically like an area light, a round area light constrained to the camera. So anywhere the camera goes, it's always like by its side, you know, it's like it's simulating like, you know, like you have like a photographer back in the day with like in a wedding, he probably like would lift one of his hands and hold like a flashlight above his head, like to the right or to the left, or have his helper holding a light a little bit offset. So kind of like it simulates that, you know, it's like it's slightly offset from the camera, but it's basically like around that ballpark. So every time the camera looks at something, it basically, you know, focuses on that and then fires it. And then you get this type of effect. So for this type of stuff, it was perfect, you know, it's like to see how much it would spread. So I would turn off my main spec and then turn on just the coat and see how much it would spread to get like a little bit more of this effect, you know. And then once you have this nail under this lighting condition, it becomes kind of easier to go through the other light conditions, you know, it's like it kind of starts to work better. But I'm actually happy with the way the skin of this guy is right now because I already tested with one. Whoops, what's happening? Oh, okay, it's still opening that scene. It's saying that the color space is different, that's all. You're gonna see how broken it is. Look at this. See the eyebrows? This is one of the things that the XGen does. It breaks your scene and then there's no fix. So basically the fix is temporary. You can fix it right now, but if I save the scene after the fix and I open it again, it's broken again. I tried many, many times. So the way it works is like this. So you go, for example, to your, let's say like hair here, right? So I'm gonna go to my eyebrows. Let's see, eyebrows main. If you go to this eyebrows main base here, if you click this one, you click rebuild, it fixes it for you, right? Same for the goatee, let's see. Mustache, goatee, rebuild. See, it fixed in there too. So, you know, and I fixed this, and now I can save this file. When I reopen it, it's broken again, every time. But so you're gonna see here, for example, my flashlight. I can show you how to do it some other time, but basically, like you see the camera right here, it follows it like that. Look, it's just constrained to it, and this is slightly offset, like I said. It's like an area light with the disc as shape instead of like this square, right? It's quad, it's just a disc. So it creates a nice effect. And the other trick that I did here is that I underexposed the background, because if you take a picture with a flashlight, right, same thing when you look at macro photography, for example, you capture like the foreground exposed correctly, so the camera can expose it correctly, but then the background gets like, underexposed. So to simulate that, I underexposed my background by going to the visibility here in the camera, and from 1 I dragged down to 0.422. So it's more underexposed, and also the intensity is a little bit smaller. You know, it's like, so instead of 1 is 0.2, so it's like that. But we are here to talk about the cloth. So basically, like, let's see what we have here. Actually, I can now open the old lady. She has a better, I think, you know, overall look for it. This one is basically like, it's a little bit kind of velvety. Let's see if we have one here. See right here, so it's kind of velvety looking. So this one is very simple. It looks like this. So graph, what I have plugged in here, I have like a bump map. And the bump map, what I'm using here, Maya has a cloth. I think it's under 2D texture. So right here, cloth, right? So it's basically like, it's a cool little node that you can actually create like a, you know, procedural cloth. So you can actually play with this. I'm using this values in here, but the thing you have to do, you have to go to your UV coordinates and you have to put the higher number in here. In this case, I'm actually repeating it by 1,000 times. So it like repeats 1,000 times. Let's see if I have a higher resolution version of it. I don't think I do. I thought I had some point. Let's see. Maybe you can see here. No, it's not high res enough, but yeah, basically like multiplying 1,000 times, I can get like a very thin kind of thread in there. So basically like, it's just that, you know, it's like I just use the cloth and then I'm using those parameters in here, 0.75 for the width. And that's about it. So effects, nothing, color balance, nothing. Yeah, it's pretty simple. And for the bump intensity, I'm using 0.05 for the intensity total. And then the shader itself looks like this. Should be very simple too. So there's no scatter, I believe. Yeah, no subsurface scattering. So it's just like plain base color. I have like kind of like semi-bluish, greenish in there. Just like that. For the specular, it's pretty broad. So the roughness is very broad. It's not like super specky. So I have those values in there if you want to copy. 0.166. But again, like if you click presets, for example, you can always add like velvet and you start from there. You know, you should get something pretty cool. Or maybe satin. Oh, I think they don't have satin here. I thought they had it. Interesting. I thought they had. So the specular, I have those settings, and then a subsurface, nothing, coat, nothing. And then the sheen, I gotta have something, which is like adding the blue to the sheen as well. So I'm using this color in here. Roughness is, it normally starts like higher, 200 or 300, but I brought it down because I thought it would be cool to see a little bit more of it. You know, it's kind of like, gets a little bit sharper. So it gets a little nicer like that. And then for the weight, it's like 0.267. And that's basically it. You know, it's like there's nothing fancy about the cloth. The only thing that's assigned in terms of map, it's the displacement map itself. So if I go back here and I see the displacement, that's it. So displacement map, I have just one tile for the entire thing. And it's just to add like those stitches, you know, it's like in those marks in here. So there's some stitches and there's tiny little, you know, sculpts in there just to look, you know, it's like around the stitches to look like there's a little volume. But yeah, so that's basically it. But I mean, like this is a little older model. I can show you the old lady that I modeled like a couple of months ago. And that one should have a nicer approach to it, I think, you know. That one, you get this type of, let's see if there's a good one here. Something like that, let's see. I mean, like it's more like kind of like knitted, right? But it has some interesting stuff in there. I can show you like how I set like DexGen, you know, it's like the little threads and all this stuff. But yeah, this one actually has a nice look to it, you know, but definitely not like the same type of cloth, obviously. Yeah, this one was what, from March, right? I think I did in March or February, something like that. it's always a thrill, man, to create new models. You know, it's like those classes force myself to get off of my lazy ass and produce something. So it's great to have you guys around. You know, so I can inspire each other. You know, as I always see like awesome work coming from the students. You see in the forums, you know, sometimes better work than mine. I was like, damn it, don't do it. I'm teaching you wrong. You know, it's like I joked about that. I'm teaching you guys wrong. You're doing better already. But yeah, man. So very cool. You guys have more questions?
Hey, Chris.
Yes.
I just finished adding pores to the skin, but I feel like the distance of my pores in general, I mean, they are connected, but it's still they are far when I am looking at some of your other works. I'm wondering if is there any standard or anything I can compare or know, like in 1 centimeter or 1 inch square, there are this number of pores?
I would say, like, I don't know if there's a kind of like an official information for it, but I would say, like, if you get like a reference like that website that we look all the time, this what's the name of that? Oh, I don't have it open here. It's I was looking at this was puzzling me the other day, man, because I was looking at the refraction in glasses in relation to the background, and I was like, I think Arnold's calculating wrong, because it's kind of like it's completely in focus and the background is completely out of focus, but turns out it's correct. You know, it's like, it just like it's based on the distance, right? So the depth of field calculates the background, but here the refraction should be kind of sharp. But so yeah, the Beauchamp's website, the ones with the high resolution pictures, I think that's the best resource. You know, it's like to kind of like do kind of like your own counting. You know, it's like look at the count and then like try to see how many you can squeeze like in 1 centimeter, you know, square or something like that. But in my case, I mean, like, although I started everything with the scale that I thought to be correct at first, later on I started like adding in betweens, a lot of them, you know. So a lot of stuff here is based like the best thing that you did is actually to add them like to spread out, because that way is easy to fix. You can just add like some in-betweens, you know, it's like, and all of a sudden you even things out. Now, if they're too close together, then there's no way you can actually, you know, fix it. You have to actually remove and then re-add them. But I would start by just like re-adding some of them like in-betweens, you know. That's how I fixed mine, so it works.
Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. All right, guys. So I'm gonna keep working here because I have to rush now to get this stuff like as done as possible by the end of the week. And I mean, like, you guys take your time. I mean, like, it's a lot of content, like I mentioned before, and I'm not expecting you guys to finish everything together with me. I'm not going to be completely done, you know, it's like probably until next week. So I'm going to keep working on it. I have to block like a shirt for him. Good thing he's not going to have a ton of hair. It's going to be easier. Eyebrows, same thing, you know, it's like I'm going to save some time on my own end in here. But hopefully I was able to actually teach those things, you know, it's like, even though I'm not adding to my character, that at least I can give you the, you know, starting point for your own characters in there. All right, guys, I see you tomorrow, and keep up the good work. And hopefully I'm going to be able to go back to our group now and reply to a bunch of posts in there, because I really didn't have the time, like, over the long weekend with, you know, it's like it was my anniversary, 10 years anniversary with my wife. And we are doing stuff around the house, you know, it's like going to dinners and stuff. So it was a little tough for me to do anything else around that and kids. But going back to that, and then try to, you know, reply to more questions over there. See you guys. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Have a good night.
You too.